This is a demonstration of Imprivata Confirm ID for EPCS, the electronic prescribing of controlled substances. Taking a quick look at the slide on the screen here, you can see that there are many steps that make up the overall life cycle for an EPCS user. For today's demonstration, we're going to focus primarily on the identity proofing and credential enrollment piece, which Imprivata rolls up into a nice smooth process. The two-factor authentication for actually completing the prescription. And lastly, and most importantly, the reporting piece, right? Capturing that comprehensive audit trail and that end-to-end chain of trust throughout the process. So moving over to our workstation here, the first aspect of this is getting a user enrolled and credentialed to do EPCS. So we're going to have our enrollment supervisor log in. So when an institution has a DEA number, they are a trusted agent of the DEA and can perform identity proofing institutionally. And as such, they're going to designate certain individuals as what we call an Imprivata enrollment supervisors. That individual is going to open up the Enroll Authentication Methods menu. They're going to go ahead and log in. In this case, they can tap a badge. And you'll notice that once that user is in, they actually have an additional menu item here because they're an enrollment supervisor. So they're going to open that option here. They're going to look up the user that wants to enroll. So this user would be, sitting with them in person, and we're going to look them up. In this case, we're going to look up user Frank Smith, and we can take some additional notes here, that we validated their government issue ID, and we can take some notes on what number that might have been and go ahead to the next step, which is the provider login. So at this step, that user Frank Smith that we just looked up, they need to authenticate. In this case, he has a badge enrolled. If not, he could use a password. And this step, outside of checking the ID and everything, just further reassures us that they are who they say they are. So now we're here at Frank Smith's menu. We can see that he needs to enroll an Imprivata ID, the soft token app on his phone, as well as fingerprints. So let's go ahead and step through that first with the Imprivata ID. So Frank's got his phone here on the screen as well. We're going to go ahead and open up the Imprivata ID app and grab the information we need. We'll grab the serial number here. And next, we're going to grab the current code that's being displayed. And if all that checks out, that'd be successful. But we're brought to this next step here. So our enrollment supervisor, Miranda Bailey, they need to actually authenticate, basically just reassuring us that they were there for the whole process. So go ahead and tap that badge and basically attest to witnessing that process. And then so next we need to go ahead and capture a fingerprint for Frank. We'll select which finger we want to enroll. And we're going to step through this process here. So we're going to take 3 fingerprint samples following the prompts on the screen. Place and hold until you get a green check and remove 3 times over. And if those all check out, we'll go to the next step where we actually just go ahead and test that fingerprint. So we're going to test against the 3 enrollments we just took. And that was successful. So we can proceed. And once more, Miranda needs to witness the enrollment of that fingerprint and attest to it. So that's the enrollment piece. We can go ahead and back out of that menu. The next step in the process is actually the two-factor authentication that occurs when you're sending a controlled substance electronically. So we need to log off as Miranda and log in as Frank. Get into the workstation here. And we're going to launch the EMR. Get single sign-on to get logged in. So in this step, I've actually got the fingerprint reader as well as the Bluetooth receiver that's required to do the hands-free authentication workflow. And so that's the first workflow we're going to experience here. In my EMR here, you can see I've got one transaction that contains multiple substances. And one of those is a controlled substance. And that's going to be the one that triggers the two-factor workflow to meet those DEA requirements. So we're going to go ahead and sign and place the order. And what you'll see here now is this is actually the Imprivata UI embedded into the EMR. And you can see that it's going to ask for a fingerprint, and it's kind of grayed out, but you can see it's going to also look for a phone as the next factor. Since we're doing hands-free, I'm going to simulate that experience where a doctor just has the phone locked in their pocket. So we're going to go ahead and lock that phone and just leave it kind of sitting there. And first things we'll do is we'll place our fingerprint. And then we should see a notification come across that the secure code was sent via Bluetooth, just like that. So the user didn't have to interact with the phone at all, but they did get an alert that the secure code was sent successfully. So for one more demonstration on the workflow, what I'm actually going to do is go into my virtual machine here and remove the hands-free receiver. And I'm also going to remove the fingerprint reader. And the point of this is to show that the Confirm ID solution will adapt on the fly to present the user with the best possible combination of modalities to authenticate that are possible. So in this scenario, it's going to say, hey, I don't have a fingerprint reader. I don't have a hands-free receiver. What's the next best option? And for us, that's going to be the user's Active Directory password. And again, the phone, but in this case, it's going to be a push notification. So the user will have to actually touch the phone and hit approve on the lock screen. So let's go ahead and plug in the user's password. And let me lock my phone to kind of show you what that lock experience is like. So we'll go ahead and press enter on the password. We immediately get an alert on our phone. We interact with it and press approve. And then we'll see within the EMR the transaction has been successfully completed and that is sent off to the pharmacy. So that covers the enrollment, the credentialing, and a couple different workflows for actually sending the scripts over to the pharmacy. So let's take a quick peek at the audit logs for this. Just to, we'll show one example of that to see what that might look like for a user. So we'll go ahead and get logged in to the admin console. And there's a number of pre-made reports that already exist in this system. For the demonstration here today, we're just going to take a look at the signing activity. And we're going to look at just activity for today for any user. And that's going to show us a few things here. For today's transaction, we can see the enrollment and the witnessing of those enrollments by Miranda. And then we can see the two transactions that we sent with fingerprint and Imprivata ID and hands-free. And then we can see the password plus Imprivata ID push notification. And we get a number of other details that would be relevant, should we need to present this data, such as the endpoints and IPs and names and all that sort of stuff that's captured in there. And that is a quick demonstration of Imprivata Confirm ID for EPCS, electronic prescribing of controlled substances.